nothing about that sort of thing in those days.
Secret underground. We're flying over Wiltshire. That's Brunel's Box Tunnel, disappearing underground near Corsham. But the railway is not the only thing that's under this tranquil scene. Below these glorious fields, there are over 4,000 acres of subterranean chambers and tunnels. There's a whole underground landscape with its own unique history. It's a hidden world that's dramatically reshaped the towns and villages on the surface. And this is where our story starts, with Wiltshire's underground golden treasure, Bath Stone. And these huge tunnels under the village of Westwood are part of an abandoned Bath Stone quarry. For hundreds of years, the beautiful golden stone has been used to build all the famous Bath Stone buildings around the world. It's what gives the city of Bath its characteristic look. Even parts of Buckingham Palace were dug out by hand from vast underground quarries. And this is one of them. I've come along with David and Nick to find out how it was done. Now, what I'm fascinated by is how these guys, before steam, before what we would regard as mechanization, how did they get these huge blocks of stone out of here? Well, how did they get them out of the rock face, for one thing?
Well, there's a good place to explain here. Well, the first thing you do, you pick a slot, horizontal slot, all the way across the width of the breach, over the top of the stone that you're going to
going in at ceiling level,
At ceiling height, yes.
Okay. Using what?
Using a pick.
Okay, then what?
Well, that gave room in which to put a saw. So the very first saw cut, you can see that this is the end of the previous one, so that the next one will go on from a similar position. Starting up there, they would saw all the way down through this stone, right to the very bottom.
It starts with quite a narrow saw then, does it?
Yes, it's called a razor.
A razor?
A very shallow one.
Okay.
And when that's cut down deep enough, about a foot or so, they change the saws over and use a much deeper saw called a frig bob.
I love these words. Frig bob is correct.
It's rude in Lancashire, so I understand.
It doesn't surprise me, I don't know why. Okay, so saw cuts down the full depth, yeah?
Yeah, about an hour per foot.
An hour per foot?
Yes.
And this is all by hand, of course?
All by hand.
And it's an hour per foot, so how many feet is this? 10 feet?
No, it's about 7.
7, so it's 7 hours?
Yes.
Solid work?
You'd probably change over with a mate, I would think.
God, they must have been tough, these guys.
They were. Now, if you look over here, you can actually see where a wedge has been driven in previously.
That, what, there?
Yeah. You make a sandwich, the wedge goes in the middle, and you use 2 thin plates called chips on each side. And if you look there, you can actually see the imprint of the chip.
Gosh, yes.
And that's the wedge that pushed this stone forward.
And I tell you what, you said this stuff was soft. I can just flake a piece off. And it isn't very strong, is it? How can they make buildings out of that? It's like, it just crumbles.
Well, when the stone's here, it's got sap in it. There's moisture, about 10%. Now, when that goes outside, that stone will season. It will get lighter in colour, the sap will evaporate, and the stone gets harder. This is a free stone, which means it's very expensive, but it's free working. You can cut it in any plane. There's no plane of cleavage. It doesn't split like slate. Which is the other extreme.
So you can cut it at any angle and it'll...
Cut it at any angle, yeah. You can bore holes in it, you can saw it, you can chisel it, you can do whatever you like with it. You can even put it in bread during the war, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, stone dust, Bath stone dust.
Deeper into the quarry, we make an amazing discovery. A quarrying crane, built in 1890. God, and this is it. This is a real piece of quarrying history, isn't it? What a fantastic thing. God, and it's all still there. And this is the thing that these guys used to use to cart these great blocks of stone around. And it looks...
See.
God, it's still
free.
That's incredible. That is just incredible.
Lots of quarrymen were killed by these cranes.
Were they right?
Well, they lost control of the load and the handle would whip round and catch them across the head.
Oh, golly. Oh, ouch. And this would pull any size of rock, I suppose?
Yeah, about 5 tons. It would lift 5 tons.
And, it looks as if it's fixed. It looks as if it's stuck into the ceiling and into the ground.
Well, it is. It fits into a chog, which is that block of elm with a sleeve in the middle, the top. That's the top bearing. That goes into a chog hole in the ceiling. And underneath, you can't see, but there's a big stone with a square hole in it. And there's a cast iron cup in there. So fits between the two.
I love all this language, don't you, Nick? Chog holes and crab winches, that's fantastic stuff. You need a dictionary practically for this. It's a language all of its own. And what about swivelling it? Is it still?
Oh, yeah.
God, look at that! Isn't that fantastic? God, it's quite spooky, that, isn't it? It's because this hasn't done that for 60, 70 years. 63 years.
Yeah.
The quarries were requisitioned by the War Cabinet on the 27th of November 1940, and all the workmen were given an hour to move out. The quarries were taken over by the government. They didn't want the Bath and Portland workmen here, and they were just asked to leave. And so they left all their tools behind, personal property was left behind. And what you see now is like an industry in aspic, if you like. It's just as it was in November 1940.
And nobody's been in here since?
No one's been
apart
back
from a
since.
few people like you and us?
Absolutely, yeah.
Amazing, isn't it?
They had an hour to get out, and these quarries were then converted into factories, underground factories.
Wonderful. And what about some of these rocks I've seen littering around here, these blocks of stone? Can we look, if I can get my welly out, I'm not sure I've been standing here for too long. I'm totally stuck here. Just hang on. While I do this. Got it. I've got to do the other one. On our way out, we pass another hastily abandoned crane. I suppose this is all just sort of waste left here, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what's this? It's a bit of graffiti here. P. Bevan, May the 15th, 1940, going to fight. That tells a story, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess he was called up. It was just before Dunkirk.
So he could have written that just as he was
going out.
laying. Fantastic.
I guess his quarrying wasn't a reserved occupation either, so they would have had to have gone off. Although, probably came back a few months later. Once the War Office took this place over to convert it into a factory, he was probably brought back to be involved in that process.
Oh, right, okay. Anyway, that's very much a sign of the times, isn't it? Is this the way out? I think this is quite fantastic. I mean, this is an extraordinary secret place, and nobody comes here, right? For Wiltshire's quarrymen, these tunnels were just the spaces left behind after taking out the valuable stone. But to a 1930s government preparing for war, it was the spaces that were valuable. They were ready-made, secret, bomb-proof shelters. The sudden requisitioning and conversion of Wiltshire's quarries dramatically changed things underground. But on the surface, the tiny villages were to see even greater change.
Corsham had no main services, no electricity, gas, water, mains water, or anything like this. And in fact, over to the left over there's a big sewage works which serves a huge part of North Wiltshire now, and that was put in by the War Office to cope with the influx of population when the ammunition dumps were established and when the underground factories were put in place in Corsham.
The majority of Wiltshire's underground quarries were converted into vast ammunition stores. Some became underground factories. One quarry near Corsham was used as an underground control centre by RAF Fighter Command. Tens of thousands of people were moved into the area to convert the quarries and then to work in them.
Well, Corsham was just a tiny village, a population of about 500 people before the war. But then in the late 1930s, there was an influx of something like 7,000 men to work in the underground ammunition depots. And this was followed up in 1941, 1942 by, well, 25,000 workers for the underground factory, plus their families. So you could double that, I guess. I guess the population of Corsham would have increased from about 500 to somewhere in the region of 50,000 by the end of the war.
In 1940, the Bristol Aeroplane Company moved major production from Filton in Bristol into a state-of-the-art underground factory in Spring Quarry. They built military aircraft engines under these houses from 1942 to 1946.
Well, the Spring Quarry factory is the largest underground factory in the world. It spreads over 3.25 million square feet. Can you imagine how large the Filton site is in Bristol? All of that was transferred underground. There's about 100 feet below ground, underneath the area we're flying overhead now. And we're overhead the factory site again now, And one of the very obvious lift head buildings, the square concrete buildings for passenger lifts. Remember, you had to get 25,000 workers up and down every day. The square concrete patches with earth mounding around them are the tops of the passenger and goods lift shafts to the Bristol Aeroplanes underground factory. The white buildings down here, the single-storey white building with light green roofs, that's the remains of one of the few remains of one of the workers' hostels where these 25,000 men who were shipped out from Bristol, from the Bristol Aeroplane Company's factory at Filton, were brought out to live for the duration of the war. There were about 8 of these hostel sites dotted around the Corsham area. The majority in the 1960s were bought up by the local authority and became council estates, but there are 2 sites still left. This one down here, which is owned by the RAF now, and there's another one over to our right. This is probably the biggest, the largest survivor of the hostel accommodation sites. It was HMS Royal Arthur, Navy training camp for Doncaster after the war. Closed down about 4 years ago, and there's been a lot of disputes about what's going to happen to this site now. There was a plan to turn it into an old people's home or something, but they've had trouble with planning authority. There are 8 of these sites, all very similar. The big building in the middle was the welfare centre.
What happened to all this after the war?
Well, the factory closed down in 1945, 1946. The ammunition depots closed down in 1965. Now, the underground factory, because it had cost the government so much to build, cost them something like £30 million. This was on top of an estimate of £1 million. I mean, the costs increased by 30 times. The government felt they needed to find some sort of use for it after the war. And in fact, it was taken over, the majority of it was taken over by the Cabinet Office, and millions more pounds were then spent in the late 1950s, early 1960s to turn it into the emergency government war headquarters, which is where central government would go had there been a nuclear war. And no one will really say very much about this. The Cabinet Office won't even admit that it exists officially, but unofficially they'll tell you that it was put in mothballs in 1992. They have other facilities, other much smaller facilities now, but because it costs so much, because so much money was spent on it, they hold on to it just in case. So it's just sat there now for the last 10 years, gradually mouldering away. They apparently spend something like £1 million a year on air conditioning the site.
After the break, we're going back underground at Westwood Quarry to find out why wartime workers needed these. This is the River Avon at Avon-Cliff near Bradford-on-Avon, and that's the lovely village of Westwood. Tucked in among those trees is the entrance to Westwood Bathstone Quarry, which lies deep under the village. During the Second World War, most of the Bathstone quarries were used as gigantic ammunition stores, but here at Westwood things were different and rather special because a big chunk of this quarry was used to store half the nation's most valuable and precious art treasures. And then in 1941, another big part of this quarry was handed over to the Royal Enfield Company from Redditch for use as a precision engineering factory. Lil and Edna were just 2 of the hundreds of men and women who came from all over the country to work for Royal Enfield at Westwood. Is that how you remember it?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, yeah.
Coming up round that corner.
Were you worried about being underground?
Oh,
No,
not
no,
a
not a
bit.
bit.
No,
not a bit.
No. I think we realised that we were in a better position than some because we were underground, whereas in the towns, I mean, when there could be bombing any time of night or day,
It was safe.
we
Really,
felt much
yes.
safer, obviously. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we never thought of
Never thought about
safety, I
anything,
don't think,
no.
for a minute. I didn't.
Just carried on as if you were working in a factory above.
Underground at Westwood, Royal Enfield made predictors, detectors for anti-aircraft guns, and then tested them on the surface in the quarry yard. Lil and Edna were trained as precision engineers, but were unaware of the importance of their work.
Yeah, it was top secret that we didn't know what we were making, really. That when we saw the actual thing, we were so pleased about it, you know.
We did the best we could. Because, I mean, most of the men were in forces anyway, had to be called up, so... And we had to keep, you know, had to keep things quiet, not to go around shouting the odds about what you were doing. I think most people in those days were like that. I mean, there were posters everywhere about keeping quiet.
Royal Enfield continued working in Westwood after the war. I've come to see the old factory where Lil and Edna worked, with Nick and some of Royal Enfield's post-war workers.
Nick, hi. Is this it? Is this the underground factory? This is the plans?
That's the size of it.
And all three of you worked here?
Yes. Yeah.
That's fabulous. God. And is this bringing back a few memories already, just looking at this place? So this was a full-blown underground factory?
Yeah.
Making what?
All sorts of things. Really.
Precision components.
Yeah. Precision components.
Very precise, some of it.
Yeah.
Very precise.
So this was quality engineering you were doing here?
At its best.
And the reason for being underground?
Because it was here. As it was set up for the war by the War Department at the time, and it was then continued on as a commercial enterprise.
Right. Yeah, I must say, it's hard to imagine this as a factory. You'll have to paint a kind of word picture for us. What did it look like?
Very much lighter than this.
Lighter than this.
Lots of fluorescent lights, continuously maintained.
It's hard to believe now, but when Royal Enfield was here, cleanliness was second only to wartime secrecy.
And the floor was spotless. They had people going around all the time. It was very, very clean.
Like a proper engineering factory, in other words. I mean, that's just high standards. You've got to be clean in a factory.
Probably ahead of its time.
Yeah.
I think it was cleaner than the factories at the time.
I couldn't believe it at first, but it was in lovely condition, wasn't it, Lil? It was really lovely. All white, the walls were. I can remember it like that. And the machinery was really fantastic.
It was really a clean and well-run factory.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, it's hard for people to believe what went on underneath like that.
We're coming into the boiler house now.
Oh, wow. Well, I said there's nothing left. Look at that. That's incredible.
The boilers are here. Yeah. Fill the pipe up until you had enough down
But
here.
this looks like an old-fashioned boiler where somebody was shoveling stuff in through those doors.
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
like a
You
furnace?
can see the fans. They were running all the time. The air that came down had to be heated because the place was, I think the natural temperature is about 52 degrees. It was heated to 64.
We're underground. There's millions and millions of tons of rock and soil over our heads. I mean, some people might get the up-debs worrying about whether it was all going to cave in.
No, I was here for 7
Well, we had Fred the Tapper, didn't we? Walking around, tapping the ceiling all the time.
All the time.
Who's Fred the Tapper?
He was a short fellow, smoked a pipe, flat cap, and he had a rod, and it had just 2 nuts on the end. And he would go along and he would tap the ceiling. And if it went bing, it was okay. If it went dunk, there was a crack. And he would make sure that that little bit was chiselled out. If he thought it was unsafe, we weren't allowed to work. We were told to get out.
Kind of gives you a new meaning to health and safety, doesn't it? just checking the ceiling, boys.
I don't think we'd get away with it these days, would we?
But 99% of the roof was absolutely solid.
Yeah.
As you can see.
I've never known.
No, it really
never
is.
known.
I mean, it's dead flat. You would hardly know that it was a rock.
During the war, Royal Enfield's underground workers worked long hours, but were treated very well.
Oh yes, we were well looked after. They used to have a doctor come in there, didn't they, once a week?
Yes, yeah.
Of course, the nurse was always there
Yes.
on duty.
Yeah. Yeah, we've always had a nurse. What I call down under, which was in the quarry. That was the sick room
That's
with the
right.
sister. And then we had this sunray room.
Sunray, that's right.
Because to us that was very new. I mean, people didn't know anything about that sort of thing in those days.
This is the sunray treatment room. That because
Cupboard, really, isn't it?
yeah, because we were underground all the time. I say the whole of the winter, we never saw daylight. So we could come in here and have treatment.
Bit of artificial sunshine.
And 2 went in at a time, and we had to wear these dark glasses, but we only had 2 minutes, and that was 2 minutes a week.
So what was this thing about having a sunroom in a factory?
In 1940, when these underground factories were set up, they were working, the conditions were much harsher, they were working 12-hour shifts. So during the winter, they'd come in 6 o'clock in the morning, they'd leave at 6 o'clock at night. So they'd be coming in darkness and leaving in darkness. They'd never see natural daylight, they'd never get any ultraviolet. So they had to have it artificially.
It's certainly bringing it back. Here we had one of the more precision machines.
Just stand where you used to stand at your bench.
Yeah. This was where, this would be my light. There were 6 benches, but it was a good time on the day.
Yes, it was. I mean, there was a certain atmosphere down here which was not replicated in any other company that I worked for. And I suppose it was simply because we were all in the same boat. And if the lights went out, we were all in the dark together, weren't we, as well?
And that happened, did it?
Oh, yes, yeah. I mean, there's these little, if we can find one, there's some emergency lights somewhere. I can't find one now.
So you were never
they just came on automatically for about 10 minutes, enough time to get you out into the main passage and up the tunnel.
Not only that, you used to have a sing-song down there while you were working. That chap Gerrish, he used to stand on his head while this machine was going.
Oh, we had some characters anyway. Oh, they were fun, yeah.
The management wasn't around at the time,
He wouldn't have stayed on his head very long, would he?
I think it's been an experience, a good experience.
Oh, it widened up our horizon, if you like.
Outlet.
Yes, yeah. And of course we met our spouses here, didn't we, Edna?
That's right. I don't suppose he would have stayed
Oh, no,
otherwise.
we would have been here otherwise, I don't suppose. Oh.
Today, the old Royal Enfield factory is silent. The company finally moved out in 1970, but other parts of the old quarry are still working. Westwood is one of only 3 Wiltshire quarries where Bath stone is still cut out. We're privileged to see how it's done today, to bring our story back to its starting point, Bath stone. Chill with us next week as we go secret underground cave diving.